this is Katie. In today's video, I want to share with you some of the worst parts about living in a car. So a lot of you guys know that I've lived in this little car on and off for 9 years. And if you've watched a lot of my videos, you know that I like to share the good and the bad about everything. I like to share the good and the bad about my personal life. And I also want to share the good and the bad about living in a car. And so in this video today, I want to share with you, I think there's about 7 things that are more negative about living in a car. And I'm actually going to do a second part to this video as well in the future. I want to preface this by saying that I am not doing this video to deter you, to scare you, to complain, none of that. I just wanted to come up with a few things that might be difficult for you, that might overwhelm you, that might be confusing, that might be scary. And I just wanted to share those with you so that you could be prepared. You know, I don't want you to worry. I don't want you to be afraid, but there's a difference between being worried and afraid and just being prepared for something that might happen. You know, kind of like you might have a few flashlights in your house just in case there's a blackout, but you're not always constantly worried about a blackout. You know what I mean? So some of these things that I'm going to list, you can prepare mentally for and or physically for, just in hopes, yeah, again, so that you're just kind of aware of what you're getting into if you decide to live in a car at some point. And even if you don't, just so that you can kind of learn a little bit more about this lifestyle, the good and the bad of it. But anyway, if you're excited for this video and you would like to see any other car life and lifestyle videos, I really hope that you're subscribed to my channel. And without further ado, let's just get into this video. Okay, so first of all, really quickly, I just want to mention all of the jewelry that I'm wearing. A lot of you guys know that I've worked with Ana Luisa for well over a year at this point. And so I wanted to do a little shout out here as part of my sponsorship with them and just show you a couple of the pieces that I've been loving. This is the Joseph necklace, and then just a little pair of earrings and an ear cuff. If you're curious to check out any of their jewelry, I love it so much. I will have a link in my description. So let's just get into the list. Number 1 is that you have to deal with the weather more actively than you do living in a house. Meaning that if you live in a house and it's raining out or it's cold out or it's hot out or it's snowing, you can be in your house, put the air on, put the heat on, open the windows, close the windows. You can kind of get away from bad or extreme weather. When you're living in a car, you have to deal with it a little bit more directly. And so if it's cold out, it's going to be colder in your car. If it's hot out, it's going to be hotter in the car. If it's raining out, it might be really loud on the roof. If you guys know, there's something with the rain and my roof that it's so loud when it rains on my roof. And so, yeah, you just have to deal with the weather a little bit more directly, especially even if you're in the car and it's raining. All right, at least you're dry, but then if you need to go use the restroom, you got to go outside, you know? And so it's not really a big deal, but it's just something to kind of mentally prepare yourself for, that you're going to be dealing with the weather more directly than you would be if you're living in a house. And that also could make sleeping a little bit more difficult here and there. You know, like if it's really, really hot, it's difficult to sleep at night. And then it's the same if it's really, really cold, it could just be more difficult. So just something to prepare for. Number 2 is that you also have to deal with outside noise more often and more directly. And so again, if you're in a house or an apartment, unless you have really thin walls, you can generally get away from outside noise. But when you're living in a car, you might be hanging out in parking lots more, especially if you're sleeping. You might be sleeping in parking lots more. And some of your day-to-day life might be more just near other people, near cars, near highways. And so it might just be a little louder during the day, but then also at night too. You know, depending where you sleep, it might just be a little bit louder at night. And so again, just something to prepare for, especially if you don't like noises at night. You can always get earplugs and even a little sleep mask if you don't like to deal with any light. But dealing with some outside noises and just all the people and just all the outside factors of being outside more is just something that's going to be like more prevalent when you're living in a car. Okay, number 3 is that it kind of sucks when you have a bathroom emergency and or when you get sick. And so a lot of you guys know that I have some digestive issues that I've had basically my whole life. And there have been a few times, not a ton, but a few times that I've gotten sick in the middle of the night while I'm living in my car. And so I have to like wake up, put my shoes on, maybe put a jacket on, and then walk outside to use a public bathroom, generally at a truck stop. And it's just a little bit more of, you know, it's just a little bit more uncomfortable when you're sick or you have a bathroom emergency and you have to go find a public restroom, that you don't have your own restroom. Sometimes it can just be a little bit more annoying. So the next one is that most simple things take more steps and more time to accomplish and are less convenient, like using the restroom, taking a shower, making meals, etc. So even just the idea of getting dressed is just going to take more steps and a little bit more time and just be a little bit more like you have to put more effort into it, kind of. So for example, I keep all my clothes in my trunk. And so if I want to get dressed, I have to leave my car, go in my trunk, open my trunk, go in the drawers, and then, you know, change in the car in a very private way. So either put blankets over you or cover your windows, something like that. or go into a public restroom or a shower and change there. And so, you know, it takes you going outside, it takes you maybe finding a public place and or just covering your car so that you can get changed privately in your car. It just takes a few more steps than it would in a house. And a lot of the things that you do, you have to go outside first, which for some people might be like, I gotta put shoes on even to go to my closet, you know? But it's just kind of the same for a lot of things, like making meals, showering, stuff like that. It just takes more steps. You know, if you're showering at the gym, you still gotta pack all of your stuff in your day bag, make sure that you have everything with you, because you don't just have your shower with everything already in it, and then you gotta put your shoes on and then go find your gym and stuff like that. So just a lot of things, they can just take more time and more steps. Next is that unless you pack very, very lightly, like unless you are someone who's really only bringing a backpack and a duffel bag and that's all you need for your car, unless you pack very lightly, your car is probably gonna be kind of messy most of the time, just because you have so much less space in here. Like I personally, I don't have a ton of stuff, but I definitely have a lot more than a backpack and a duffel bag. I definitely have a lot more than that, because I've been living in my car on and off for so long that I really wanted to downsize to where I can fit everything I own in my car, but I can fit it comfortably. And so as you can see, like all of this is empty. Like I do have some stuff back here, but all of this is empty. And so my car is pretty organized, but there is just still a decent amount of stuff in it. And it's just way more likely to get messy and disorganized quicker than if you're in a house. Because if you're in a house, you have more space. Everything that you own might already have a home. And in the car, you can definitely do that. You can definitely have an organized, tidy, everything has a home organizational system in your car. It's just going to get messy easier because you have less space. You know, it's just gonna happen. And so to kind of like prevent that, either bring a lot less stuff, or obviously some people kind of like rip out everything in their car and they build a different type of organizational system, and so that can keep things more organized. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to keep my car a car and use it that way. But also just another thing to do about that is just tidy it up every day. You know, even for 15 minutes a day, tidy it up, and so it won't just feel really, really messy. But it just is gonna just be a little bit messier than your house, probably. So the next one is actually mixed in with the previous one, that there's just a lot less space for you and your stuff. And so even when you are packing for your car, you really have to downsize a lot. I actually think that's a really good thing. I think that it's kind of a pro that you have to downsize a lot, because you get rid of a lot of stuff that you don't need, that you don't use, that's weighing you down. But I know for some people, downsizing can be really hard, and it might be really difficult to let go of certain things. So when you're moving in your car, you have to get rid of a lot of things, and or store them, and or give them away, something like that. And so there's just less space. And so some things that you might use all the time might be stored away. So again, to get to them, it might take a few more steps or take a little bit more time. But then there's even just less space for you, which I know is a negative thing for some people, you know, especially people who've never lived in a car before. One of the things that they comment on a lot is like, how are you comfortable? Like, isn't that so uncomfortable to be in your car all the time, or to sleep in your car because it's such a tight space? And honestly, it doesn't really bother me very often, but I understand why it could, you know, because like you can't even just walk around your house. You can't just like walk to your kitchen or walk to your bathroom. I mean, you can, but it's very, very different when you're in a car, because if you're walking to your bathroom, that means that you're leaving your car to go to a Target bathroom or something like that. And so in your house, you know, you might be able to lie out, you might be able to exercise, you might be able to just stretch and do things like that. In the car, it's a little bit more difficult. Obviously, you can still like do this, and stretch in certain ways and stuff, and there's definitely enough room for a person, but it's just a lot tighter of a space. And so it's just something to acknowledge, but also just something to get used to. Like for me, it doesn't really bother me very much, and if it ever does, if I ever feel a little claustrophobic or I want more space, I can just go outside. I can literally just go outside and stretch out, or stretch my legs, walk around either outside or a store or anything like that. But it is something that you got to get used to, because there just is obviously a lot less space in your car. And the last one that I'm going to talk about, I actually think that I just already briefly mentioned, is that most of the things that you own are going to be stored away. And so again, that's just a little bit of a hassle sometimes. I think a lot of these things aren't, especially on this list, aren't necessarily scary or anything like that, but they're just certain things that might be more of a hassle when you start to do them. You know, I think I already mentioned earlier that all of my clothes are in my trunk, and they're organized in a way that's really, really good for me. But all that means is that anytime I want to get a change of clothes, I have to get out of my car and go to my trunk. Is it a big deal? No. But is it just a different type of way of living than in a house? 100%. And so all of these things on this list are just little things that if car life is for you, if you are someone who is made for living in a car, then these things might bother you every once in a while, but they are things that you're going to get used to, and they're not going to be things that deter you or that get you down all the time. Sometimes they might, for sure. Sometimes these things might get you down, or might get like overwhelming, or might get like, oh my gosh, I wish that I could just like lie out on a couch right now. I get that. You might feel that way sometimes, for sure. I just really always want to be here to encourage you that you can feel those kind of feelings, but that does not mean that they need to dictate your actions. You know, sometimes you're going to get frustrated, overwhelmed, annoyed. And I think it's just really, really important to feel our feelings. It's okay to get overwhelmed. It's okay to have all those feelings. It's important to feel them, but it's also important to really decide for ourselves if that's a necessary emotion to let dictate our actions, because a lot of times they're not. Like, just because you're overwhelmed with something doesn't mean that you should never do it again. It might just mean that you have to do it a little differently or have a different mentality, you know, just everything's a little bit of a learning process. And so if you're about to go live in a car, I just wanted to give you a little list here of some things that might just take a little bit of getting used to, or that might annoy you sometimes. But yeah, I think that's going to be it. I really hope that you're subscribed to my channel, and I hope that you're following me on Instagram as well. I'm doing a lot more reels and stuff over there. Thanks again for watching, and I hope that you have a wonderful day. I love you, Jesus loves you, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.